Former cheaters of Reddit, how were you caught by your significant other?
Wait, before we continue, I want to say a quick hi. This is me, Laura, and I am the person behind this channel. YouTube is shutting this channel down, and I need your help. I've just launched a new channel called Laura Reads. There, I'll be reading Reddit stories in my own voice and posting more frequently. I'd appreciate it if you could check it out and subscribe. Thank you so much for your support. It truly means a lot.
I was a bit of an idiot while I was in the military, young, dumb, and full of hormones. I got a girl pregnant, and for a while we had an on-again slash off-again relationship as we, mostly I, tried to figure out what we were going to do. Neither of us were okay with abortion, nor was she dead set against adoption. Not the smartest suggestion I ever made. During the last one-again period, after our daughter was born, I got an email from a girl I had seen during one of the off periods. She said she was planning a trip to where I was stationed to see some friends. She'd moved back home after we stopped seeing each other and knew nothing about my daughter, and said she'd like to see me. To this day, I have no damn clue what was going through my stupid 20-year-old brain when I not only said, sure, that'd be great, but also paid for her hotel room for a couple of days. Now, if I'd been smart, that would have been the worst of it. Pick her up from the airport, talk a little, hang out. Nope. I did it with her and stayed at her hotel the entire trip, except when she was visiting some friends. Took her back to the airport and proceeded to try and act like everything was normal. She still texted me on occasion, and my stupid self texted back. I tried to ghost, but that wasn't working. And here's where the mistake that got me caught was made. Thinking my cell phone password was secure, I didn't delete any of the texts. One day while spending the day with my daughter and her mom, I went out to get something from my car, and after remembering that the girl I'd cheated with had sent a text earlier that afternoon, I went back inside and grabbed my phone in case she texted again. My daughter's mother saw this, and it set off a red flag. That night, while I was asleep, she unlocked my phones. She'd learned my password just by watching me open, and she'd read every message I should have deleted. I woke up a few minutes later to my ex standing over me asking, "Who is this?" I was caught dead to rights. In my half-awake state, I thought she'd just seen one message and didn't realize she'd read everything. The biggest mistake I've ever made in my life was answering that email. Out of everything I've done, that is the one thing I'd go back and undo, because it has cost me the relationship I could have had with my daughter, as we currently live in separate states, and her mother will not talk to me. I don't blame her at all. She is completely justified. Here's what you can take away from this. 1. Don't frigging cheat. It's just a stupid idea. 2. If you are going to, see item 1, then change your password regularly and for crying out loud, delete your messages. Story 2. After we graduated, my girlfriend went to a university 2 hours away. I'd visit her every 2 or 3 weeks, and sometimes we'd get physical, sometimes not. A few years went by, and we happened to be on a 2 to 3 month no-banging streak. We argued about it, and she basically told me she didn't care how I felt. That week, I started going to a club during my lunch break. Normally, first-shift dancers aren't particularly attractive in my experience, but there was one girl who stood out. No stretch marks, no visible scars, and she didn't dance with a cigarette in her hand. She came over, we talked, I got a few dances, and she asked for my number I gave to her. That Friday, she called, and we decided to meet after her shift. She brought drinks and wings. We watched a DVD and eventually started making out. Things escalated and we spent hours together. The next morning, she left without asking for money, which surprised me. We kept talking every day. I met her family, including her 3 kids, and went on several dates. After 3 weeks, she asked if we could make it official. I hesitated, then she said, "I love you." Foolishly, I said it back, though I knew spring break was coming and my real girlfriend would be home soon. I tried to distance myself, stopped calling, and made excuses. Eventually, she became suspicious and showed up at my door in a robe. We ended up together again, but that afternoon she asked if I was seeing someone else. I said no. 3 hours later, my girlfriend called screaming, "Who the hell is Jasmine?" Jasmine had gone through my phone while I was sleeping and reported every detail. The next 2 weeks were full of death threats from Jasmine and her cousin, attempts to get me fired, and false pregnancy claims. Eventually, it all stopped. My girlfriend and I worked things out and stayed together for another 5 years. That was the last time I tried cheating. Turns out I'm terrible at it. Story 3. She asked me if our intimate life was adequate. I told her it was not. She did not care, so I sought emotional comfort elsewhere. I told her that the first time I did it, I caught chlamydia, and even that time was better than the time we usually had. Then she told me she had been essayed. I let her know that I had been too by my half-brother and sister, and had sought psychotherapy because I wanted to have a healthy relationship with my long-term partner. It didn't work out. I don't hold it against her, but women are just as strong as men. She has her own issues to work through, but I choose to pursue a healthy, intimate life. I seek therapy and find ways to make my intimate life healthy. I don't victim blame myself, and I shrug off anyone who wants to diminish what I've gone through. I'm a man. I've gone through shit. I am strong. Story 4. She was in a minor car accident after leaving a work conference and sent me pictures of it. In one photo, there was a glimpse of a guy sitting in her car. I assumed it was a coworker. About an hour after her shift ended, she sent me a text saying she was going to grab a drink with a few friends from work that I knew. I sent her a text about 2 hours later asking for the details about the other vehicle so I could process the claim, but didn't hear anything back. I figured she was at the bar and hadn't seen it. Around 2 in the morning, I tried calling her. Nothing. I tried a few more times because it wasn't like her to be unresponsive for so long. I sent texts from 2 to 4 in the morning, trying to get hold of her, still nothing. I panicked, signed into our cell phone service, added the Family Finder subscription, and logged in. Her phone was near a sketchy location in town, so I grabbed my gun and headed that way. The locator gave a rough area, which was a small apartment complex. I talked to the security guards and they let me walk in. I had a remote for her car, so I started hitting the unlock button and saw flashing lights ahead. I found her car with a visitor pass in the window and her phone in the center console. I looked at the apartment number on the pass and knocked on the door. No answer. I walked outside and looked in the windows, couldn't see anyone, and sat outside for about an hour. I remembered who she said she was with and called them. They were home and said she was staying at the bar with another friend. I called that friend, who confirmed she had been with them. I decided to stick around a bit longer. As the sun started to rise, I ran back to my vehicle to grab a drink. When I returned, her car was gone. I hauled my bum home and beat her there. She walked in, surprised to see me awake. I asked about her phone and she said it was silent and she hadn't realized I had called. She claimed that she was with her friends. I confronted her about the lies and she acted like I was the bad guy. She moved out and he ended up moving in. After a few weeks of prodding, she slipped and told me his name when I called to ask her something, and he was in the background. I realized I knew he worked for an old boss of mine. I called my old boss, who also knew my wife, and told him everything. He fired the a-hole. The guy called me, bragging about everything, and said, "We can be friends, right?" I did a background check on him and found his parents' and grandparents' phone numbers, addresses, and Facebook pages. I contacted them and ended up turning his family against him. If you're out there, a-hole. Hope your life is crap. Story 5. She noticed I wasn't as attentive to her. She knew my passwords, went into my laptop, and found everything on Facebook with one of my exes, the only time I ever cheated. The look in her eyes crushed my soul. After she moved home, I cried for weeks on end, having nightmares about that look. I still sometimes dream about reliving that moment. She'll never know that we both suffered for what I did, and she doesn't need to know. She has a dull but stable guy now, and they're engaged. Meanwhile, I'm still single 6 years later because, boy, I did fall hard for the next one. Story 6, I got caught. Cheating, but hadn't cheated. My wife and I went away for a weekend, during which time my teenage son decided to have a low-key party. There were only about 10 kids, and we knew about it, so it wasn't like a Hollywood teen exploitation movie with the house getting trashed or anything. Just a bunch of kids are over for movies, board games, and so on. What we didn't know is that one couple decided to use the opportunity to get a little privacy in our bedroom. They were almost discreet about it, but they made one mistake. The boy brought a 6-pack of condoms, used only one, and left the other 5 in my nightstand drawer. I rarely use that drawer, so it was almost 6 months later before my wife found the open box with one condom missing. She had been doing some house cleaning and was putting away the miscellaneous junk that had accumulated on top of the nightstand. It took her a whole week to confront me about it. The entire time, she was weirdly cold, kept asking me if there was anything I wanted to tell her about, hinting around subjects like trust, fidelity, and what would happen if one of us cheated. I was like, okay, you're being super strange, but whatever. I figured it was just a phase or something. Finally, she was waiting for me in the room one night. As I came in to get ready for bed, she opened my nightstand and said, "Just what is this?" and pointed to the open box of condoms. I was like, I have no idea. It's a bit TMI, but we don't use them because I had a vasectomy after our youngest was born. No amount of protesting, pleading, speculation, denial, etc. would satisfy her. In her mind, I'd banged some hoe, apparently just once, and hadn't even had the common decency to cover up my crime. That storm took 2 weeks to blow over. We finally got to the point where our kids found out about why we were constantly arguing. My son gulped and then bolted out of the room. A few minutes later, he had a very apologetic friend on the speakerphone. Of all the awkward conversations I have had in my life, that one must be in the top 10. This story is now part of our family mythos, and it gets trotted out on occasion as that time mom thought dad was cheating on her. It always ended the same way, and somehow it was still his fault, because somehow I should have been more understanding of her feelings or accepted my obvious guilt to spare her any more pain and suffering. To be fair, I did have a proper case of righteous indignation, but I kind of think I came by it honestly. Story 7. My girlfriend was at a party with people I knew while I stayed home that night. She told me to pick her up around midnight. At midnight, I texted her and got some weird replies that didn't seem like how she texted, saying that she wasn't coming home and calling me a bitch or something. I knew the guy's house it was at, so I showed up asking where she was. The guy said she wasn't there anymore. The next day, she told me she had slept with one of my best friends at that party, and the kid was the one texting me and talking crap over the phone. We're not together, and that kid is no longer my friend. I banged on the kid's girlfriend in a park one night a few weeks later as revenge. Story 8. I had a married neighbor that I was friends with, and I was also married at the time. We worked close to each other and would see one another most days. Shameless flirting, we had a lot in common, but no lines were crossed until he kept inviting me to hang out at times. His wife would probably be getting home from work, like 9 or 10 p.m. I'm perfectly comfortable with males and females being friends and didn't see a problem with it, so I didn't notice the signs. I usually just stopped for a few minutes while walking my dog. Nothing really progressed or crossed a line until I told him that I was moving out of the neighborhood and getting a divorce. Late one night, before I had moved out, I came home late and he happened to be outside. He kept asking me where I was coming from. I just said, out, grabbing drinks after work. I got a phone call from him shortly after getting into the house. Short version, confessing his undying feelings for me, hoping we could live together and be a big, happy family with all our kids, and claiming that I had broken his heart because I came home late and wouldn't tell him where I had been or who I was with. He told me he had been inviting me over late at night so that his wife would catch us together. I managed to calm the situation down after like 3 hours on the phone with him in the bathroom downstairs in my house, my husband and kids asleep upstairs. It took a few weeks, but he came to his senses and I haven't heard from him since. Their home was foreclosed on, they moved a few towns away, so there's not much chance I'll see them very often. To my knowledge, the wife never found out. In the meantime, I'm now happily divorced, mostly single, and loving living an uncomplicated life without the title, homewrecker. Story 9. Other way around. I never found out. She just told me she had slept with her ex. She ripped me to shreds because we hadn't done it, and she had told me she wanted to wait and build our relationship. I stayed in that relationship for 4 years. I was emotionally damaged, and she had convinced me I couldn't do better. After we ended things, I found myself and realized I was attractive. Now I'm with the most gorgeous girl. I wouldn't have even tried her back then. I didn't end on bad terms. In fact, we hooked up at the end of our 4-year run for a bit, but I ghosted her as I began getting attention from other women I was much more interested in. Story 10, I've been cheated on, but I have a better story about a family friend. Probably will get buried at this point, but it's worth telling. This is about a guy named Jake. Jake was the perfect guy every parent wanted their daughter to date. He went to church, kept his grades up, had a nice job, and was a solid member of the community. I have an older sister who is Jake's age, and they went to school together for most of their lives. My parents adored Jake and wanted my sister to go on a date with him. It probably would have happened if Jake didn't already have his high school sweetheart. At this point, they were fresh out of high school, and Jake and my sister were going to a local vocational school. Throughout the first year, my sister and Jake got close. My sister was ready to go on a date, but he was engaged to his high school sweetheart and was very respectful about not leading her on. School ended, Jake and my sister parted ways, and time went on. Fast forward a couple of years. I was talking to a college friend who was also a very good friend with Jake. Turns out that Jake and his high school sweetheart never got married, even after several years of being engaged. Her reason? She was cheating on him with his best friend the entire time. The kicker, they had been waiting until marriage to get physical. I can only imagine being Jake. Girls were lining up to go on dates with him, but he patiently waited to start a life with his sweetheart, only to get completely screwed over. My friend said the last time she talked to Jake, he randomly messaged her asking if she wanted a one-night stand. Ugh, life is already hard. Stuff like this ruins people. Break up before you cheat. Story 11. The guy I was cheating on put up a Facebook status. It was his birthday and I had gone to see him. He posted something like, "Thanks for the birthday wishes," especially that one. My SO at the time was Facebook friends with him, was not an idiot, and I was not exactly subtle about going to see this guy. My SO called me at work and just asked what was happening between this person and me, and I told him everything. I should have told him myself without having to be prompted. I learned a lot from that relationship. It was also my first real relationship. This was 6 years ago. I haven't cheated since. I ended up dating the guy I was cheating with for just over a year, and I'm sure it will come as no surprise that we broke up when he eventually cheated on me. Literally everyone I've dated since has cheated on me, so feel free to call me a piece of crap. But I know it, and karma is taking care of it. Story 12. My dad was caught cheating on my mom. My mom would do interior painting occasionally for extra money, and my dad would come when he was in town. He had to travel a lot for work and was gone about 2 to 3 weeks a month. One day, my dad was in town, and my mom needed help finishing a house she was working on. So she brought my dad along. As they were working, 2 cop cars pulled into the driveway. My mom laughed, wondering if someone thought they were burglars and called the cops, but my dad broke out in a sweat. He sat my mom down and said he had been accused of assault and that the police were there for him. At first, my mom didn't believe it, but then he started saying they needed to sign divorce papers so that if he went to jail, she could still have the house and car. My mom lost it and was sobbing, and the police cars pulled out of the driveway. The cops had apparently been at the wrong house. Now my parents were just stuck with the elephant in the room and decided to talk about it. It was a drunk night 10 years prior, and he claimed that was the only time. My mom didn't really trust that, so she took his phone when he wasn't looking and went through it. Of course, he had a girlfriend. My mom asked him again if there was anyone else and said if he came clean, she would stay and work it out. He lied and denied having a girlfriend. My mom told him she knew about the other woman and sent him to a hotel. That 2 to 3 week travel schedule wasn't really accurate. It was only 1 to 2 weeks for work. The rest was to see the other woman. And that is how you can crash and burn a 24-year marriage. Story 13. I caught my then girlfriend by testing if her laptop password was the same as her Facebook password. I logged in and received a message from a guy asking where to pick her up, to watch a concert together, and then do stuff. Apparently, she was also logged in, so I had to read the conversation happening in real time. I was holding back tears and decided not to tell her. I acted like I didn't know for a week until she told me, a techie guy, that she thought someone was hacking her Facebook. I admitted it was me. Then her friends got extremely mad and blamed me for invading her privacy. I didn't break up with her because I loved her so much. I was dumb. Story 14. I was in a polyamorous relationship with 2 men, A and B. A was more relaxed and just wanted protection used. B and I tried to set up more boundaries because he was new to the whole poly thing. We came away with different expectations. I thought the rules were no sleeping with strangers for safety, and dating romantically was to go at B's pace, and obviously protection was a default. B thought I was going at his pace for everything. He found out because I told him the day after I had a 3 score with A and a friend of hers, and I was excited to have had an experience kissing with a girl past. I thought I was good to go because she wasn't a stranger, and I was also safe because A was there if things went wrong. We fought a lot, eventually made up. A and I broke up a few years later, and now B and I are monogamous. Story 15. I suspected something at a dinner party. I had just gotten a potential review at work for a promotion. I went to the party and saw my wife flirting with Jonas. Jonas was that hotshot, know-it-all D-bag. Every time he opened his mouth, my wife made googly eyes at him. Very strange. I questioned her about it at home. She said they had a short fling. I later found out short meant 6 months. I knew she was hiding something, so I kept pressing, but she wouldn't budge. I paid Jonas a visit and interrogated him. It got feisty, and I found out he had kept a tape of his encounter with my wife. But I noticed it was recent. It happened while I was on a business trip. Story 16. I was the one who got cheated on. We had been together for nearly 7 to 8 years and knew everything about each other, from social security numbers to passwords to everything. Privacy didn't exist. I never asked her. It just happened, and she said, "We're in a relationship, so there shouldn't be secrets." Whatever. After graduating school, she got a job and worked. I graduated a year later and couldn't find a career, so I worked at a grocery store. Money was tight, and she kind of ran the show while I helped. I was the loser boyfriend for a while. 3 months before we broke up, I needed a phone number from her phone. When I tried to use it, the password was invalid. I asked her, and she said she had changed it for some reason. I said fine and asked what the new password was, and she refused to tell me. It seemed odd, but whatever. Afterwards, she wanted to hang out with her friends and said we were bored. Again, off, but whatever. Then she stayed at a mutual male friend's house until 1 a.m., and when I questioned her, she said I was being controlling. That was completely off. Then she started saying that I should allow her to sleep with other men and then come back to me. I told her to go to hell. I got suspicious of her behavior and found a way around her phone password. Opening it was like Pandora's box. I saw a bunch of messages to guys on Facebook and texts planning dates and things. When I confronted her, she said I had violated her privacy and got mad. I just stopped trusting her, and she ended up leaving me. I'm still not over it. It's been 4 years now. Last I heard from a friend, she got married. Suspicious behavior led me to catch her. Story 17. I just had a feeling he was cheating. He hadn't created an online account for his cell phone service, so I went on the website and created one myself, since I knew all of his information. I looked through his SMS logs and saw that he texted a number I didn't recognize a lot. I tried all the reverse phone lookup sites, but that didn't work. Finally, I just called the number myself and put on my best professional voice. Me. Hi, this is Sarah from some random company, and I'm looking for Miranda Smith, or whatever name I used. Girl, I think you have the wrong number. Me. Oh, so sorry, dear. May I ask who I'm speaking to so I can verify and have your number removed from the file? It worked. She told me her name, and I recognized her as someone he had slept with before we met. Another time, I installed a keylogger on my computer and found out he had slept with our unborn son's godmother, one of my coworkers, a girl from his hometown, and some random girl on a train he had taken a couple of weeks earlier within a month. Story 18. The reverse cheated. I was younger then, but I found out my girlfriend at the time had cheated on me while I was out of the country. The guy's new girlfriend asked me at a party how I got over the fact that she had cheated, except I didn't know about it when she asked me. I confronted my girlfriend and the guy that night, and it turned out to be true. Stupid younger me decided the relationship was worth salvaging. Months later, she became friendly with a mutual guy again, and I became suspicious. While she was in the shower, I jailbroke her iPhone and installed a silent/hidden text messaging app. Over the course of a few weeks, I watched every text she sent to the guy and her friend talking about him. At the same time, my girlfriend had convinced me to go to a counselor with her. While in the counselor's office, I confronted her with a printed transcript of the texts she had sent. Psycho Bish still tried denying it. I felt bad for the counselor. It had to be awkward. If you're going to cheat, just leave the relationship. Why be in it if it's not what you want? And don't give cheaters a second chance. Trust is gone. You'll always be suspicious when it counts, and you won't feel as loyal to the person you're with. Story 19. Okay, so it's a great story. I bought this girl a sexy red dress and told her I'd do anything for my princess. It's worth mentioning that she was my future wife at the time. I had two friends whose names I won't mention. Let's call them M and D. D was like a son to me, but he was clearly in love with my future wife back then. She loved him too, but only platonically. On the other hand, M had been my best friend for a long time. We would run together and throw a football around. I found out my future wife was seducing M, and he succumbed to her charm. They had an affair. Then she tricked me into drinking alcohol while I was tired and wasted. I loved her, and she begged me to make love to her. It was amazing, but I later found out she told people I had hit her. That was not true BS. I did not hit her. I recorded everything by connecting a tape recorder to the phone she used to talk to her lover. On my birthday, I caught her, and she admitted that she had betrayed me. I was heartbroken. Everybody betrayed me. I was fed up with this world. Story 20. He told me he had a feeling and he had been considering marriage and wanted to know if his bad feelings were right before making a mistake. A clue here, a clue there, and it was enough. He confronted me. It only took a minute or two before I knew I had to change. Shamefully, I spilled it all and asked if I should leave. I can still feel that dread and absolute disgust at myself when I think about it. By some miracle, he said he wanted to work on us. We were about 7 years into our relationship at that point. We spent another 5 years working on us. It's been a nasty, long, painful, eye-opening, and insane 5 years, but we married at the end of 2017. I'll never know where he pulled the strength to continue with me, but I'm grateful he did. Story 21. I suspected an ex of mine was cheating after finding her texting random guys. I worked nights and visited her job in the morning to bring her breakfast. Her work phone rang, and she answered it and walked away from me, which was weird because we were the only two there. She said a coworker had called in sick. Being the suspicious a-hole I am, I noted the area code on the caller ID. I typed a random number with the same area code into my cell phone and asked her, when she returned, where the coworker lived. She said she lived in a different area code than the one on the ID. I told her I didn't believe her and was going to call the number because I was tired of her lies. I started calling the fake number, and she stopped me. She begged me not to call, cried, and said it was not the coworker, but a guy she was just friends with. I left in anger and said we would talk later. Still suspicious, I called her at work 3 to 4 hours later and told her I had just spoken to the guy, which I hadn't heard that he told me she had sent explicit pictures. She cried again, begged for forgiveness, and apologized. I felt like $1,000,000. I ditched her that evening. She tore up some of my house in rage because I had done her wrong and was petty as hell about moving out. I called a buddy to grab a beer and some food so I wouldn't get caught up in her attitude. My parents went over to prevent any more damage. She respected them enough to not act out while they were there. Crisis averted. Story 22. I don't know if this fits here, but I'm going to tell my story anyway. Apparently, I was the guy she was cheating on her boyfriend with. When I met her, she told me she was single because her ex-boyfriend was crazy. We met at a bar with a bunch of mutual friends. She left early, and before leaving the parking lot, she texted her friend asking for my number. She was cute, so I was obliged. We texted for a few days, and then I added her on Facebook. I saw some recent pictures of her with him. I asked her about it, and she said they had recently broken up, so it made sense to me. Skip forward a few weeks, and we had been dating a bit. I texted her on my lunch break just to see what she was up to. She said she was having lunch with her friends, so I let it go. No big deal. Well, her friend just so happened to be dating my best friend, who told me she was out with who I thought was her ex. Weird to me. If he was crazy, why would she be hanging out with him? I sent my best friend a Facebook message a few days later asking why they broke up. According to him, they hadn't. So he and I met for a beer. We decided we would both surprise her by being at the same spot at the same time. That was a fun night. She got pissed, so we both broke up with her. He and I are good friends today. Story 23. I cheated on my ex at the beginning of our relationship. I was madly in love and just wanted to hang out with him, but he would find an excuse every night, and in the morning, I would find out he had gone out with his friends. I thought he wasn't serious about us. This went on for 2 months. I went to a party, got super drunk, and saw a male friend. We started making out, and then I asked him to come to my place where we spent the night. Fast forward 2 weeks, my boyfriend started giving me a lot of attention, taking me everywhere, never letting me go, and being sweet overall. When I thought things were going to start working out, it happened. An instant message on his Yahoo Messenger had photos of me making out with that guy at the party, with a long description of our conversations and lots of insults at me. My boyfriend came over, confronted me, and wanted to break up. I confessed. After a week, he came back, and we tried to make it work. We moved to another country to start fresh, and he became abusive, hitting me, insulting me, and reminding me every day of what I had done. He made me cut ties with my family and friends 2,000 kilometers away, so I was stuck in a hellhole for 3 years, working 2 jobs and paying bills while he stayed home to play League of Legends. I left a year ago telling him I was visiting my mom in Germany for 5 days. I didn't plan on leaving for good, but I stayed and called him to tell him I was going to stay. He sent all my stuff. He then proceeded to stalk me for about 6 months, begging me to go back. If you cheat, just break up with the person you are with. Don't destroy their life like I did. I was 17 when it all started, so I wasn't very clever. I am now in a relationship with a wonderful person whom I would never betray. I still have panic attacks and nightmares about those days, so I can say I learned my lesson. Story 24. My ex got busted because of Rice Krispie treats. I made some for one of his friends after his dog died. About a month later, I had to go out of town for a funeral. That friend sent me pictures of my ex getting frisky in a bar. My ex tried to say the pictures were old, but he was wearing the shirt I had bought him a week before the funeral. The friend busted him because he didn't like what my ex was doing to Crispy Girl. Story 25. I broke it off with the girl I was cheating with because I knew what I was doing to the person I really loved was disgusting. Said girl wasn't happy about it. Once the dust settled after creating new email accounts, changing phone numbers, and removing myself from social media, she tracked my girlfriend down on Instagram and told her everything. She even created fake WhatsApp conversations between me and her, claiming I did lots of stuff I never did, screenshot them, and sent them to my girlfriend. Crazy girl also pretended she knew nothing of my girlfriend, except she knew from the start. Story 26. I'm on the other side of this, but it all started to come apart for her when I noticed how she was taking phone calls in the other room often. I mean, I've had my pinky in her, but what could she possibly be embarrassed to talk about in front of me? Then she claimed to have been essayed when she ditched me in the middle of a phone conversation and showed up the following day covered in hickeys. It became super obvious that I had been playing when she brought me to her college town and didn't introduce me as her boyfriend to a single person. I'm not proud of this part, but I hacked into her Facebook account. There were incriminating messages to her ex-boyfriend, not to mention the internet stranger she had been having an emotional affair with throughout our entire 2-year relationship. During a couple of months of trying to work it out, worst mistake of my life, I discovered there was a third guy in college she was basically dating. I finally broke up with her for good, and she started dating yet another guy the very same day. F you, Abby. Story 27. A girl was in my apartment and she threw something away. The next time my girlfriend was over, she saw this weird pink wrapper in my garbage and just knew. I don't know why I did it, but the girl wasn't nearly as attractive as my then girlfriend, who was also amazingly selfless and an incredible person all around. I miss her and wonder what our life would have been like if we stayed together. It's crazy. I wonder about an alternate timeline where I just took out the trash. Story 28. I know this thread is old and this will probably be buried, but whatever. I found out my fiance, who I've been with for 5 years, cheated on me. He was with one of his friends 3 times and let her sleep over while I was at a funeral. How I found out was, we had an amazing date, and I told him I loved where we were and that honesty was our strongest quality. He immediately got weird. The next morning, I had a bad gut feeling and, out of the blue, asked him if he had cheated on me. He said yes. He had cheated on me 3 years ago and had been lying since. I found this out 8 days ago. I have just finalized all our wedding plans. We were supposed to be married this October. I don't know anymore. Story 29. I moved out of state for grad school, met a girl in my program, and continued putting myself in a series of more compromising situations until my fortitude crumbled and the inertia of events took over. I felt terrible. I still loved my girlfriend, but also couldn't trust myself because my temptations were obviously stronger than my convictions. What I did was bad, but what would be worse would be pretending I wasn't confused and continuing to disrespect her, or potentially breaking her heart again by minimizing my doubts and temptations to make it easier to stay together. She deserved to know the hard truth, so I came clean and told her everything. I'm still haunted by the pain I inflicted. I think about her every day and almost every night. I was tempted, confused, and lost sight of what was truly important in my life. I was riding the high of being in a new place, an exclusive grad program, and surrounded by intelligent, attractive women who were interested in me. It was my choice that led me to where I am, so I have no one to blame but myself. I've talked with therapists, am on a wait list for counseling through my school, read books on ethics, morality, and honesty, and meditated on what happened with my ex-girlfriend and me. What I did was terrible, and I don't want to be the kind of person who does terrible things anymore. I've tried multiple times to see if there was any way forward with my ex, but she wants nothing to do with me. As much as that pains me, I'd probably do the same from her position. I'm sure she won't have trouble finding someone who will love her but won't hurt her like I did. Story 30. I hooked up with a girl who works with me and we dated briefly, but she left and eventually we split. Later, I met another girl I work with and we ended up getting together. Then the first girl came back and we were all working together. I ended up hooking up with her a couple of times. Ashamed, but they're both hot. And they compared notes. Oh well, it was the best 2 months of getting away with cheating, considering they would both give me fake names so they could gossip about their wonderful boyfriend at work. There were times they were both talking to each other using different names but both talking about me without knowing. I'm ashamed that I cheated, but it came with a good story. Story 31. A girl I knew but hadn't talked to for 4 or 5 years texted me out of the blue asking to come by and talking, saying it had to be in person. I was kind of confused, but I said, sure. She came by and proceeded to show me messages from a guy friend of hers who was venting about some girl who had been leading him on with the promise of breaking up with her boyfriend to be with him. But she kept putting it off. It was my girlfriend he was venting about. I broke up with her immediately. It was quite a conversation. Story 32. I was cheated on by my ex. I knew she had issues with cheating in the past because she had cheated on her ex with me. It was a crappy, abusive relationship, and I thought that by being a good person and a kind, loving boyfriend, I could fix her, which is and always will be a horrible mentality to enter a relationship with. Regardless, after much discussion, we opted for an open relationship. We both wanted to be monogamous, but she felt she wouldn't be able to keep it up, and this gave us a fallback. She ended up hooking up with someone at a party, and it felt fine because she was honest and transparent about it, so I figured this was the best solution. At the end of November, I went out of the country, across the globe, for a family member's wedding. I missed her badly. We normally weren't apart for more than a few days, so I was constantly trying to text and talk to her. But the 12-hour time difference, coupled with her lack of communication skills, made it difficult. I felt like she wasn't putting in as much effort, but to her credit, she's a full-time student and had taken on a particularly difficult workload that semester, so I let it go. When I got back, our relationship felt noticeably different. We went from spending 5 to 7 nights a week together to maybe 1 or 2. She was always too busy to spend time with me or talk, and when we did, we would get into petty fights over nothing. I assumed she was seeing other people and waited for her to tell me. It never came until a very big fight. Once I knew it was happening, it didn't bother me as much. With that cleared up, things felt better, and I gave her space to finish her semester. On the day of her last exam, I took her out on a date. We got dinner, she came over, and everything felt great. I was in the mood for some fun time, but she said she wasn't feeling well, so I let it go. That night, as we went to bed, I saw her put her phone under her pillow, something she had never done before. I couldn't sleep. I knew what was happening, but I also knew looking at her phone would only hurt me. I did anyway, and found exactly what I expected: flirty texts between her and some random guy. I woke her up and told her to leave. She burst into tears saying she couldn't control herself and didn't know what to do. I ended up leaving and going to a friend's place for the night. I had a standardized exam the next morning, and with public transportation screwed up, I didn't get home until 1 p.m., and she was still there, passed out. She's been diagnosed with intimacy and love addiction, SLA. We patched things up for the moment, but it happened again and I couldn't deal with it. We're taking a break for now, but we share the same group of friends and hobbies, so I must see her at a friend's birthday party today. It didn't really answer a question very well and turned into a wall of text, but it feels good to get this out. Story 33. I was the cheater. A girl I used to hook up with contacted me after a few months of no contact. Life had been busy for both of us, and we ended up hooking up quite a few times. She claimed to be single before we started. After the last hookup, I got a text from her sister, who was also her roommate. "You know Nikki has a boyfriend, right?" I was slightly devastated. I felt somewhat cheated and would never have been okay with participating in cheating. I told her sister I had no idea. The girl I was sleeping with and her boyfriend had a few pictures together on social media, but nothing that would make you guess more than friends. I faced a moral dilemma and decided to tell him. He didn't believe me, as she was very convincing and thorough in covering her tracks. Her sister ended up telling him a couple weeks later. They stayed together for a few more months until he left her for someone else. Sorry, Jared. Story 34. My boyfriend of nearly 6 years and I shared a computer. I was cleaning up files, renaming, decluttering, etc., when I noticed a large discrepancy between the files I had and the space they appeared to be taking up. I quickly Googled how to unhide files, and ta-da! A smorgasbord of filthy conversations, pictures, videos, arrangements to meet, an unending buffet of betrayal spanning our entire relationship. It took hours, but I read every single word and looked at every picture. It was like dying from countless paper cuts. I sat with it for months. I was stuck, as he had made sure to have complete control over my finances early on. I had put myself in this position. Eventually, I broke it off and chose temporary poverty over his lies. Story 35. I met her in the bathroom at my hockey team's rookie party. The fact that she blew me within 15 minutes of meeting should have been a red flag, but the girl had some talent. Fast forward a couple of months, and while we weren't overly serious, it was clear we weren't sleeping around at that point. Then she told me she was going to a friend from her high school lacrosse team's rookie party. Well, she blew a guy in the bathroom, and within 5 minutes of it happening, I had a cell phone video of the closed door, surrounded by people, with a couple of my buddies commenting that they tried their best. I just laughed and told them to get in line. Story 36. My ex was an authorized user on my credit card. One day I noticed that my friend/coworker claimed expenses for reimbursement with a credit card ending in the same numbers as hers. At first I thought it was mere coincidence that the card he used just happened to end in the same digits. But not all his claims were from the same card. I trusted my ex and was extremely infatuated, so I thought nothing of it. Then one day my insecurity got the best of me. The dates for reimbursement lined up with nights she was too tired or busy to go out. The next month I checked my card statement, and yep, they were the same charges. I ended up being doubly screwed because I had paid my credit card bill and reimbursed him for those dinners. I left that friend group and business shortly after. Story 37. My ex-husband's cherry on top of 3 years of cheating and deceit came when the woman he was banging, who also happened to be a coworker, thanks AT&T for teaching great customer care, came crawling up the stairs literally not even a minute after I had packed up my things. I had left my phone charger there and stopped just behind the building when she slinked up the stairs. He tried to play it off, but she said she was comforting a friend in need. Bish, please. I knew she was doing him. I had seen the texts on his phone. That was the second time I had met one of the women he was banging. Story 38. Snapchat's Snap Map feature caught her. I was out of town and saw a friend of mine who made his location visible on Snapchat, literally at my girlfriend's address. She lives in an apartment complex, so I tried to rationalize it, thinking someone else must live in that building too. I called her and asked straight up if someone was in the apartment. She said, no. The next morning I called her again. His location still said he was there, and asked her once more. She laughed and called me crazy. A few minutes later, she deleted me on social media and blocked my number. Story 39. I was the side guy who became the boyfriend that got cheated on. I worked with her at a restaurant. We always flirted, but we were both dating other people, so it was harmless. Then I got cheated on by my girlfriend, so that relationship ended. I called my coworker to hang out. We banged and fell asleep. We woke up banging on the door from her current boyfriend. Eventually he left. They broke up and we got together. I drink more than most people, but I can keep it together. She started drinking with me, which eventually turned her into a very bad drunk. Angry, forgetful, punchy, and crying. It sucked. Her 21st birthday came up. She wanted to bar hop with friends and coworkers from her new job, all guys who just wanted to bang her. I kept my mouth shut all night as she danced with anyone who wanted and took massive amounts of shots. Eventually, it ended with her outside, drunk and crying. She asked what was wrong, and it turned out the guy she'd been banging, Mike, didn't come out for her birthday. I'd been suspicious of this Mike guy for weeks, and this confirmed it. I drove her home. As we pulled into her apartment complex lot, she started breaking everything in my car while hitting me and screaming that she hated me. I somehow managed to calm her down and got her inside. She passed out, and I slept on the couch. I was gone before she got up. This was the final push for me to move to Florida, weeks before I got kicked out of college and the house I was living in. Peace. Story 40. My girlfriend at the time got into a heated argument about a guy in her office. Let's call him Mark, who I thought was hitting on her. I was totally wrong. She asked for a break, and I thought, cool, let's take a break, get some ice cream, and talk things out. Then she clarified she meant a break between us. I assumed she broke up with me and walked to the nearest bar. I got drunk and hooked up with a girl named Chloe. The next morning, my girlfriend called wanting to talk things over, but Chloe was in my apartment. She found out and said I was cheating on her. I told her she had said we broke up, so it wasn't cheating. She replied, we were on a break, not broken up. I thought, what the hell? Be clearer then. Our relationship was on and off for a couple of years. Eventually, I knocked her up and we got married. At least she wasn't a lesbian like my ex-wife. Story 41. Not me, but my ex. I was in a long-distance relationship with a girl from Australia. We were in love, so we made it work. I work part-time and have a mortgage, so it wasn't easy to save enough money to visit her, but I did. The 2 weeks I spent there were the best I'd had in a long time. She showed me around. I stayed with her, met her friends, and even kept in touch with them afterward. I knew she had cheated on me once before and forgave her, since we were on opposite sides of the planet. While talking to her friend, I found out she had slept with her friend as well. Her friend apologized for it, not her. Well, I got a 2-week stay in Australia for the price of a plane ticket, so I guess that relationship wasn't a complete waste. Story 42. Occasion 1. It was my birthday. She was in the shower and I got paranoid, so I checked her phone. I noticed a guy's contact name had hearts, so I unlocked her phone. Turns out she'd been cheating on me. She lied, saying she was just messing around and hadn't seen him in person. I was a foolish 18-year-old and believed it, until she admitted the truth 3 weeks later, after we had returned from visiting her family in Texas. I forgave her and gave her one more chance. Occasion 2. I was in South America on vacation, when a good friend told me she had slept with my best friend. I confronted him, and he confirmed it, so I cut him out of my life. She claimed he had pressured her into it with alcohol. I was desperate to keep a hot girlfriend and scared of being single, so I bought her story and continued dating her. About 6 months later, I finally dumped her, but we still saw each other on and off for another 6 months. Occasion 3. I was in her car going to dinner when she got a call from a guy and it popped up on the car screen. Later, I looked him up on Facebook and saw a profile picture of them together. I messaged him and asked if he knew her. He said they were dating. I explained the situation, that she told me she was single and we had been intimating on and off. He replied, "What? I've been dating her for 9 months. Turns out she was cheating on him too." I gave him all the proof he needed and he believed me, though he initially wanted to keep her because she was attractive. I've since cut all contact with her. She was a pathological liar, prone to intense outbursts and emotional abuse, not just toward me, but toward others as well. I've learned a lot about myself and relationships from this experience, and I genuinely hope she can turn her ways around and have a healthy relationship someday. Story 43. I have a lot of stories, but here's one. My boyfriend and I had a fight one night. I left, felt bad, and bought Burger King breakfast to surprise him in the morning. I walked into his house and saw someone sleeping on the couch. Whatever. Then I went into his room and saw a girl in his bed, fully clothed. He was gone. I tried waking her up and she angrily said, "Ah, stop," then went back to sleep. I grabbed her things and suddenly she was awake, yelling, "Don't touch my stuff." I walked out and called my ex a million times. Long story short, I haven't talked to him in years. Petty moment. The girl he cheated on me with, who I thought was unattractive, ended up as his background on his computer. Story 44. Years ago, I was seeing a woman who was my district manager. One evening, my girlfriend had gone to the gym and I was messaging the mistress. Suddenly, she sent me a message. "We must stop now, hubby knows." When my girlfriend got home, she confronted me, phone in hand, showing me a Facebook message from her husband saying he had read all our texts, seen the pictures we'd shared, and had proof of us being together. It was a terrible moment. Since then, I've never even thought about cheating. But, as karma would have it, I've been cheated on by 3 of my last 5 girlfriends. Advice: if you're thinking about cheating, just take take care of yourself first and avoid the drama. Story 45, I never got caught. From the start of each relationship, I was upfront about having lots of female friends and told the girl if that was a problem, the relationship would be short-lived. I was always honest about who I was meeting and where. When meeting a biscuit, what I called the girls I slept with on the side, I'd even ask my girlfriend if she wanted to join. Occasionally, we'd all have a fun night out. Dinner, drinks, dancing, maybe 2 or 3 times. Surprisingly, none of the biscuits ever ratted me out. One time a biscuit took another man home, and that turned me on so much that the next time we met, it went straight to a hotel. What finally made me stop cheating was a conversation with my current girlfriend. We were talking about infidelity, and she said, "If I ever caught you cheating, the biscuit can have you." That made me feel so expendable and insignificant that I never cheated again. Story 46. He was supposed to have a day off work, but told me he was covering a 3 to 11 shift as a favor to another cop. I went to a friend's house and on the way back, happened to see him stop at a light. I thought he was going to work and started to beep and wave, but then I noticed he wasn't alone. It was well past 3 p.m., and since I was close to his house, I drove by and saw a woman's car I didn't recognize. I called his phone for an hour with no answer. When he finally called back, he made lame excuses, insisting she was just a friend. I collected his things from my place and broke up with him the next day. Later, my sister told me he had been cheating on me for 3 months before I caught him. Ironically, my sister was dating his work partner at the time, and she eventually married him. I even had to see my ex at their wedding, and my sister made me dance with him since we had introduced them. I still hate her a little for that. Story 47. Not me, but a friend's story. About 12 years ago, my friend's husband was deployed to Iraq. They had a 10-year-old son and a happy marriage. One day while he was deployed, another friend called me screaming, "Holy crap, turn on the news right now." On the news was a human interest story about a high school fundraiser. As a surprise for one of the participants, the husband had done a video call from Iraq, displayed on the Jumbotron, telling another woman and 2 kids how much he loved them and couldn't wait to come home. The news highlighted what a great guy he was. The next day, our group of friends had to tell my friend what we saw. She called the news station, which allowed her to see the footage and apologized. The ending wasn't great. She confronted him, they started divorce proceedings, and he went on to legally marry the mother of his other kids, largely ignoring his son from the first marriage. Story 48. 1 week ago, I found out that my husband of almost 7 years had been having an affair for a year and a half. We have 2 children together, ages 3 and 7. For at least a year and a half, he allowed me to pack his lunches, cook for him, and clean for him. While he was seeing a woman who worked with him on the same hospital unit, he probably ate the lunches I made for him with her at work. I even planned for him a surprise 40th birthday, completely unaware that he was betraying me. He came home each day, kissed me, and carried on as if nothing was happening. He would still ask me to send pictures of myself, some clothed, some not, telling me how cute I was. Not a single tear, not a shred of remorse. I truly believe he has antisocial personality disorder. Story 49. Not the cheater, but it's relevant. I had just gotten out of a year-long relationship. At least it was a relationship to me a few days ago. We met on Tinder. I'd never met anyone from that app before and figured, why not? There was an instant connection, and in the beginning, she was concerned that I wasn't just going to hit it and quit it. She would say things indicating this was something special. A few weeks in, we agreed to have an exclusive relationship. Things were great for a while. But then, I noticed little things here and there that seemed a little off. I justified it to myself because I trusted her, and she didn't seem like a dishonest person. The last 2 months were rough. She became more distant, and we spent far less time together. I asked her about it, and she always had a reason. Being that I trusted her, I didn't think it was appropriate to check her phone or email. I figured if she wanted out or wanted to be with someone else, she would tell me. After New Year's Eve, I told her I was done with her crappy behavior. She said she'd think about what I said and get back to me. Previously, when there were issues, she'd usually talk with me within a day or so. Over 2 weeks went by, and by that point, I knew it was over. I didn't care. Because with the way she treated me, I was already done. She finally came over to talk. I already had her stuff packed in a bag by the door. She said, "I don't want to continue this anymore. I don't regret it at all. I've had an amazing time with you, and I really appreciate everything you've done for me and my family, etc." Of course, I asked, "So what's the reason?" She replied, "I don't really have to give a reason. Does it even matter?" I said, "To me it does." She gave some line about wanting to focus on getting a job. I pressed her 3 times, and she looked me in the eye and said, "There's no other reason." I told her I didn't believe her, and that after a year together, she could at least have respect for me and be honest. I said, "I don't care that it's over, but you're not being truthful. Your stuff is in a bag by the door." She was emotionless and more worried I'd returned all her things. She walked out, and I thought, she's been seeing somebody else. I logged onto Tinder, which I hadn't been on in a year, and saw her still in my match list. Her profile had new pictures, including one from a show we attended together a few months earlier. She had asked me for that photo at the time, but she was using it for her Tinder profile. I called her minutes after she left, trying to keep a casual tone. Hey, I just have a quick question. How come your Tinder profile has a picture from the show we went to 3 months ago? She didn't say anything and immediately hung up. Not that I wanted more lies, but the truth would have been nice for once. I'm not sad it's over. If anything, I'm relieved. She was certainly not someone I wanted to be with, even before I found out. Thinking back, all those little things were signs. I suspect she never even stopped talking to other guys, and it's a fair assumption she cheated. What gets me is that I trusted her completely, and even when she was over my place, she was probably talking to other people. I'm kicking myself for not checking sooner. I could have saved a lot of time, energy, and effort. I thought we had something meaningful, but she had the ability to come into my home and lie to my face. She lied the entire time. A further frustration is that throughout our relationship, women from my past tried to hit me up, go out for drinks, or even openly express interest. I told them all I was in a relationship and that meeting up was inappropriate. I held my end of the bargain, resisted all temptations, and realized it was nothing but a waste of time. Maybe it's petty, but I hope that someday she gets treated the way she treated me, though that would require her to be capable of love, which I seriously doubt. One thing consoles me. You can't build a real relationship with someone who's already dead inside. Sorry for the long rant. It happened less than a week ago and the wounds are still fresh. Compared to other people's horrible experiences, it's minor, but I wanted to get it off my chest. I hope that for all the good people out there, we find someone who truly loves us as much as we love them. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.